Hello, Sonny. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing good. How are you, Carrie?
Man, I'm doing amazing. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I know that you're a CPA and that you have a special concentration. So we're going to dig into that.
Okay.
Before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, who you serve. Let's go from there.
I'm Sonny, Sonny Peak. I run an accounting firm called Sonny Peak CPA LLC here in Westminster, Maryland. Started the business about 5 years ago on the side, and last year was able to leave my full-time corporate accounting job to do it full-time. So been doing that since. I focused on serving the construction industry, more specifically commercial specialty trade contractors. So that's
Okay.
what I'm doing.
All right. So how long were you a CPA before you started doing the side gigs?
So I became a CPA in 2014, early 2014. I can't remember, in the spring of 2014, I think it was. Um, it was about a year after I started working for a small tax accounting firm um, outside of the Baltimore area here in Maryland. And that was an internship. Basically, did simple personal tax returns, a few business returns here and there. And at the end of that internship, they offered me the full time position. I had already taken one of my, no, three. I had already finished three of my CPA exams before I even started working for them.
Okay.
Um, and got the year of experience, finished up the last CPA exam, and they offered me the full time job that following year in 2014. I was with them for a couple of years, um, left them for a larger regional firm, stayed with them for a couple of years, got bored, left them, and started working in industry for one of the largest media and book publishing companies in the world. Um, Out of their office they have here in Westminster. And around that same time, I started doing taxes and bookkeeping for a few friends and family members on the side. And up until, so that was 2017. So um, after, what was it, with them for I guess 4 years with them, I left them and did my own thing full time. So
Okay. So you
I,
you you went the traditional route. You went to school, then you started doing your internships, got your CPA credentials,
mhm.
and did the traditional work for the big companies, and just gained some experience,
Yeah,
right?
kind of a well-rounded variety of everything. A tax experience at the first firm. Worked with a bunch of different industries, nonprofits, manufacturing, construction, all kinds of different stuff. And then at the second firm I worked at, um, I did less tax and more audits. So I got to learn the whole financial statement side of things and
Okay.
um, the whole gap side. So and
Well,
then and
I'm
then with
familiar with that kind of side because I used to be we used to work for GE Capital,
okay.
and I was not on the sales side. I wasn't in marketing then. I was in the other side, and we would look at those financial statements, and it's like, okay, what type was this? Was this audited? Was it certified? Can we
Yeah.
trust these numbers? And then so that would be the first thing. The second thing would go to the notes. Like, all right, what are in the notes? What are you hiding? What are you not telling us?
Yeah.
All of that before we even look at the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so
So
so are you well versed in hiding things that people don't want to see?
no, I don't I kind of try to stay away from people that you know, they want to be unethical. Um, so No,
Okay.
I'm not into that. I'm not into sketchy things.
Well, there are a lot of people that don't have the same feeling that you have about their
Hmm.
numbers.
Yeah.
So how did you get into you said you have a concentration right now on contractors and that kind of niche. How did you fall into that?
So around it was probably a couple months after I left the public accounting firm and started working for the private company that somebody I knew let me know that they were starting their own business. Um, they were a master plumber and they'd worked for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years in plumbing, right out of high school. He became a master plumber and then decided he wanted to start his own thing. And he went and purchased QuickBooks Online, tried doing it himself. Um, couldn't get it done, called me up and said, "Hey, can you help me look at this stuff? I don't know what I'm doing." I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "I've never actually used QuickBooks Online myself before. Um, I came from the audit side, so I never did the actual accounting. I audited the actual accounting at the end, which kind of doesn't make sense when you think about it. That you got these kids just out of college that are auditing and supposed to vouch or verify that the numbers being reported are correct and that everybody's following the rules and doing the accounting right, but they've never even done it themselves. So
Um,
it's
is
kind
that
of backwards when you think about it.
is that kind of the way that things like Enron happen?
Probably.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like everybody's giving them lots of money based on their numbers, right? And they're
Hmm.
being audited at the time by one of the big six. And here it comes out that everything in those numbers was wrong.
Hmm.
And so, I know there's a little bit more to that story, but I think it centers on the fact that the folks who are actually going to do the auditing don't have enough experience to be able to say whether this thing is really good or not.
So I'm cynical and um, so my opinions are kind of, I don't know, cynical. There's things about the whole, so let me, the whole idea of an independent auditor that's being paid by the client to do the audit doesn't make any sense to me. And it never sat right with me when I was doing the audits. Um, so I almost think I've always said this thing or said, came up with this saying. I guess somebody else may have come up with it before me, but I said a good auditor is a dumb auditor. And this is like kind of what I'm thinking the audit partners and the CFO at the company, from their perspective. A good auditor is a dumb auditor, somebody that's going to go through the motions, check all the boxes, make sure we have a stack of papers like this to prove that we did something.
I understand what you're saying. That they're not going to be Columbo where they're pretending to be dumb and they're going to do an aha. They're just going to go through the motions.
Yeah.
They're going to give you what I think the analogy would be that they're going. It's like pharmaceuticals, right? And they're published studies. If you paid to get a study to answer a question, you're probably going to get the answer that
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. That makes sense.
that could get into a whole nother discussion about my cynicism about the world today. But I'll say a lot of what people refer to as the science nowadays really isn't science. It's professional research, is what it is.
I think we can leave it right there.
So we don't have to talk
Right
about go
there.
any further than that.
We'll save that topic for another time.
Yeah.
So, all right. So your buddy calls you up. He doesn't know how to do QuickBooks. He knows you're an accountant. He says, "Help me out." And you're like, "Well, I can help you out, but I don't know anything about this either." So you had to learn the software.
Yeah, so I had to learn how to use the software as a tax preparer and then auditor. I was familiar with the reports that were generated from QuickBooks and other various software packages, but you know, how the numbers got there in the first place was unknown to me at the time. So I said, well, I'll try it. I know what a debit and a credit is, and I, know how to use a computer. So I figured I could figure it out. And
Right.
I learned as I went on and figured out how to do bookkeeping. I'm like, okay, I know how to do bookkeeping now. And eventually hired people that he needed to put on payroll. So gradually learned that, made mistakes and learned from that. And over time, just I'm continually learning every day. And that's what I like. Like you were mentioning you wanted to talk about kind of like why I started my business. And that's part of it is I'm always learning something new every day. Every time I've left a previous job, it was because I was bored
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't learning anything else. And that's when I knew it was time to leave. But now, if I want to learn something new, I can just do it. I've got the choice to do that. And
Right.
so,
I will tell you this. I've been self-employed doing marketing for 13, 14 years now.
mhm,
And part of my day, every single day, is learning.
yeah,
I mean, the industry that I'm in moves so fast and things change so quickly that if you don't keep up to date, you're going to fall behind.
mhm,
And so learning is like as old as I am, I learn every single day. Right? Don't sit back and say, "Oh yeah, I know it all." What? No, I don't know it all.
yeah,
Not ever going to know it all. So yeah, I like that aspect of owning your own business and you know being able to do what you want to do. And even if you have to do boring work, at least there's an aspect of your day that can be interesting.
yeah.
All right.
I go
So how
sometimes
did
I go a little overboard with it, and I think I can get distracted by things that that little shiny object syndrome of a new app or whatever else that's out there, or this whole idea of you know, starting to post on Instagram and all this other stuff, when I should be finishing up tax returns that are due next week.
well,
But
yeah, that is the danger side.
yeah.
And I think a piece of advice that I would give to anybody listening
Mhm.
is also that try to be a producer of content as opposed to a consumer of content,
Yeah.
right? So if you find yourself consuming too much content, well, stop yourself and say, "Look, I'm the guy who produces it. I'm not the guy who consumes it."
Yeah. Don't watch the news, make the news.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you're either going to be the product or you're going to be served the product.
Yeah.
Right. So that would be my advice. Now, there are some really good, cool things to do from a marketing standpoint. What
Mhm.
what are you doing from a marketing standpoint to grow your business?
So, um, up until past couple weeks ago, basically nothing.
Uh-oh.
Had the website, um, had the Facebook page that was never posted to. Here and there, I would, make a post on my personal Facebook page, saying that I'm an accountant for anybody that doesn't know, and here's what I do if anybody's interested, and um, just nothing consistent, And
Right.
I think, like you were talking about, instead of being a consumer of content, be a producer. For the past probably 5 years, I've been like a voracious consumer of content. Like I'm constantly listening to podcasts, all different kind of topics. Following interesting people on social media and listening to what they have to say, and people like you, and just like sucking everything in that's out there. Like I'm obsessed with information and like learning new things. And so I think I've spent a lot of my time doing a lot of that over the past several years.
Would it be fair to say that other than that one client that you've grown,
Mhm.
would you have you experienced like ups and downs in terms of income and workload because of that
Um,
inconsistency?
no, because most of the clients that I have are, well, at least now I've changed my pricing structure. Um, you know, I'm trying to gear my business to be more of a subscription model,
Mm-hmm.
um, rather than charging by the hour or or even charging fixed price per job, like for a tax return or whatever. I've decided to actually bill weekly, um, and just be available for whatever that client would need within the scope of things that I'm able to do.
So kind of a weekly retainer based on certain
Yeah, but
criteria.
sort of, but I don't think retainer would be the correct term. It's more of a weekly like subscription fee for access to me and my brain and my ability to figure things out.
Okay.
And then there's other stuff that's added in, such as the monthly bank account reconciliations, you know, your tax return at the end of the year. That's all just included as part of that. Whatever you need done that I have the ability to do, I'll do it.
Okay.
Um,
Are you
it's
finding
kind
that
of it's more of a theory right now than anything. The way I have my pricing, advertised on my website, which I've heard various opinions on that. Of some people say don't put your price on your website because you want to be able to use value pricing, and your services that you provide to client A, they might only think they're worth $1,000 a month, but then client B might be willing to pay $5,000 a month. So I've heard people say to not advertise your pricing and price each engagement based off of how that client values it. But I found myself um, doing extra, letting scope creep kick in and doing more than I had originally set out to do for people,
right?
and having a really hard time sitting down to bill them for it, because a lot of that time spent to solve their problem, whatever it was a lot of research on my part. And I felt like, well, I'm learning from this, so it's valuable to me as well. And somebody else out there might already know the answers, but because they're having me do it, I would always struggle with billing them, and I would end up hemming and hawing and saying, well, I'll put on my invoice $5,000, but then put a discount of 75% so that they really understand the value of what I did, but I'm really not charging them that much. And I would go back and forth with this pricing thing, and I'd end up just not billing them and just saying, whatever, we'll just keep
Well, I got to tell you, that doesn't sound profitable at all.
No, not at all. So, I mean, I set out to do this. Like the thing that I like the most about being my own business owner is being able to make a difference for people and being able to help people. Um, like I think that's what we're on this earth for, is to serve one another.
Mm-hmm.
And um, again, it's just an idea, and it may not be reality, but or it may not be how things actually turn out in real life. But my kind of thought is, if I do good things for other people, um, money will be a side effect of that.
Only if you ask for it.
Yeah. So, and that's the problem I have with it, is asking for it. So,
I think there are a lot of people in your industry that suffer from that. And
mhm.
I use the word suffer intentionally
Yeah,
because it is something that holds you back from growing your business,
yeah,
right? If you're not able to create the income you need to go and do the serving that you want to do, then you're stuck grinding, either trying to find clients or just grinding through the clients that you have,
yeah.
right? You're not providing the value and the service that you really want to do because you're stuck in that paradox. You know,
Hmm.
how do I grow my business if I don't charge enough to grow my business?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a paradox that a lot of I don't know why it is, but a lot of people that are in the numbers game, the financial services game, seem to be in that mold,
Yeah.
right? You're not alone. And I don't know why that is, except I I I think it comes from the fact that you know how long it takes and it's easy to you, and so you devalue your own skill set,
Yeah.
right?
I think so. Yeah.
And so if you devalue your own skill set, then you're not telling the end user of what you're really worth. And let me give you an example. Are you familiar with Alex Hormozy?
Yeah. I think, is that the guy I just started following on Instagram? He's got the big beard and he's kind of,
He's
lifts
jacked.
weights. Yeah.
Yeah, he's jacked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did just start following him. And,
Okay.
yep.
He is he's a very good thinker on business and scaling and
Uh-huh.
creating information about it. But one of the things that he likes to say is that your value is not based upon you. Your value is based upon what you do for your client. And so if you're working with a business that makes $1 million a year and you provide 10% value to that, that's only $100,000. But if your client is a $10 million company and you provide that same 10% value to them, now you're providing $1 million worth of value.
Yeah.
And so you're doing the same work, but the value that you bring is 10 times greater because of the client that you have and the value that you bring to them.
Yeah.
And so from a pricing standpoint, I think that's a trap because a lot of a lot of bookkeepers and accountants and new business owners don't grasp that, and they want to do business with everybody. They think everybody is their niche, right? They can serve
Hmm.
everybody, and then their pricing becomes that commodity based pricing, which is always at the bottom.
Yeah.
You feel the need to get the client, and so you lower your prices down to be competitive with other people that charge similar monies, and then you're all going broke.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, how much value do you have one major client? Do you give that client the same value that you give a client that doesn't charge you, that doesn't have
Oh,
this?
hell no. No. I mean, I'm giving them, you know, they make up 80% of my revenue, but probably, 90% of my time. So,
Okay.
so I mean, if you think of it that way, it's their fee needs to go up. But, but,
Only if Sonny wants to make more money.
yeah, yeah. So,
But if you feel like you're at the end of your value, there's like, well, maybe you're charging enough. I don't know.
yeah,
I mean, so and that's the interesting question though, from a marketing standpoint. Is like, how do you know when you've hit the peak of how much you can charge?
yeah.
Well, the answer is you keep raising your prices until people say no.
Hmm.
I mean, that's really what it is.
Yeah,
And if you give a price to a new prospect and they don't have a lump in their throat, well, you probably didn't ask enough.
that's probably true. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just one guy's opinion.
No, that's a
All right.
good opinion. It makes sense.
So all right. So you grew your business. You have this one major client, and what have they done since you started with them? I think
What
you
have they
mentioned
done since I started? Yeah, I
yeah.
think we got kind of sidetracked there when I tried to explain that from the start. So 2017, they started in February. They did close to like 200K in revenue that first year. It was just him, the owner, and maybe two like part-time helpers. Um, the next year, I can't remember the exact numbers, but that would have been 2018. Again, they did like 300K, maybe 400K. And then in 2019, they did um I think they might have been at like 500,000, but 2020 they blew up. COVID was actually a boon to them because they won a lot of emergency construction work that happened because of that, through the state here. And they did 2 million in 2020, 2021, 2.2 million. This year they're going to do like 4 million. And I've been, my role has evolved as time went on, as additional needs arose.
Sure.
They do a lot of government work, so they have to do um, certified payroll reports for their payroll. They have to pay the prevailing wage rates that are mandated by the Davis-Bacon Act.
So would it be fair to say that because of their growth, that your value has increased with them,
yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, it has.
and has your fee gone up
Yeah,
accordingly?
it has, yes. So they're in my highest pricing package on my website. I have a 4-tier subscription model. And I've cleverly named each one of those packages, um, based off of the industry that I serve. So my
Okay.
level 1 package is for a guy that's just starting out. He maybe have been in business for like 2 years, and he's making like $250,000 a year or less, and it's just him. There's no other employees. That's the level 1 package. I call that the helper. For
Helper, okay.
somebody that now has payroll, and they've got up to 3 or 4 guys, on their payroll, and they're making up to $1 million a year. Bless you. For the guy that's making up to $1 million a year gross revenues and has a couple people on payroll, I call that one apprentice. And then the next level above is, it's kind of loose guidelines. Again, like I said, it's a theory right now more than like I have like a whole bunch of people in each package.
Right.
It's just a handful of people. But it gives me that kind of structure to at least have a starting point for price, because it's every single person you talk to is going to value what you do differently. And whenever I would speak with a potential client, it's like, well, what do you charge? It's like, well, I don't know. It depends. It depends on how complicated your situation is and all this. So that's why I set this pricing page up online to kind of, for myself, to make it easier to at least have that starting point for the
Right.
conversation.
Provide a framework so that,
Yeah.
that the prospect can understand where they fit in.
Yeah. So you got the helper package, the apprentice package. The next one's called the journey package or journeyman package. I dropped that off the end because of, to be politically correct. And then the highest package, level 4, is called the master package. And the pricing's arbitrary. Obviously it could have chose any numbers.
All pricing.
It's all subjective. It's subjective, and it's, so I think I came up with an hourly rate that I thought I should be making myself based off of working 40 hours a week. And I was looking at my salary at my old job, looking at what they paid for health insurance for me, because they covered a certain portion of that. And then looking at what it would cost me to get health insurance on my own for me and my family. And I kind of came up with this rate, factored in like what expenses would be for, and I said, well, even though I was getting paid 86,000 a year, I think was what my salary was when I left that company. I think I was underpaid there too, to be honest. But but they were paying my health insurance and all that other stuff. That all adds up to, well, I can't just base it off of, if I want to quit my job and do this on my own, I can't just charge whatever $86,000 a year hourly is.
No, you can't.
I got to cover the health insurance. I got to cover the expenses of the business.
Right.
I got to pay for my AI CPA dues now, and my license, and my Maryland associates in the CPA dues. Got to get professional liability insurance. I got to get business owners insurance. I pay rent now because I have this office that I was going crazy with the kids at home trying to work from home. I just couldn't do it. I had to get out. So
Right.
I found this office space for a reasonable price. But so I factored all that stuff into, well, if I can work 40 hours a week, because I really don't want to work more than 40 hours a week,
Mhm.
um, that that never happens. I've since changed that, and I when people ask me how many hours a week I work, I say 168. And I said I'm even working, and that's kind of again back to the point of we're on this earth to serve others. We were put on this earth to work too, and work. Our work is to serve others. So I look at every waking minute and hour as work because that's our purpose. So if I'm sleeping, it's part of my work because I can't do good work in my waking hours without good sleep. If I'm lifting weights in the basement to keep my body strong, that's work too. Just it's all just work. So I'm fine with that. So I'm fine with a 168-hour work week. Um,
There's these podcasters I listen to for fantasy football,
mhm,
and they have a sponsor for their podcast,
uh-huh,
and it is Right Guard deodorant or shampoo. I'm not sure which one it is,
okay.
but the tagline is always not working.
Always not working.
Always not working. I know. I
Hmm.
understand. No, it's always working, not always not working. But why do you guys say it like that? So you're like always working no matter what.
Yeah. It's all work and just, be happy working. Like
Yeah.
that's your purpose.
Well, let me ask you this: what would you recommend somebody, a bookkeeper, CPA that wants to go out on their own? What would your just quick recommendation be?
Um, quick recommendation. I guess know your numbers. I don't know. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
Well, I tell you this that most people who say, "Well, how much should I charge?" don't factor in all the things that you just factored in,
Yeah.
right? They start off thinking, "Well, what do other people charge?" Which really shouldn't be relevant,
Yeah.
right? No, you don't have the same situations as anybody else, but you're also not taking into account all the things that go into what you need to make in order to, survive.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying, any one client should pay all of that, but if you're not charging for all of your expenses, your learning, and your overhead, how are you going to make a profit? Right? You have to charge for all of that plus enough to make a profit.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's ironic that a CPA says, "Well, know your numbers." Um, I mean, even a bookkeeper. I mean, that's how you get business, right?
Yeah.
Is helping that prospect business
Yeah.
understand their numbers to in order to be able to understand their numbers. That's how they're going to be able to save money. That's the value that you provide, right? Putting
Yeah.
things in organization. Is there a different value that you provide, Sonny?
So, yeah. Um, I think there's value that I provide um, that isn't seen because it's not here and now. Um, I think a lot of mistakes that business owners make or bad decisions. There's a difference between a mistake and a bad decision, by the way. But a lot of bad decisions that people make, they don't see the consequence of that bad decision until 5 years down the road. And they never make the connection between the two. So
Uh,
I think there's a lot of that stuff of setting things up right now. Like when I have that business owner that gets a business credit card and I tell them, you need to give me your receipts. You want to save your receipts and have them, and we should have them because we need to be able to match them up to the specific jobs you're working on so that we can do job costing, and you can see how profitable you are on each job. It doesn't matter right now because it's just you and you're just grinding and doing what you can to get it done. But you got to develop these habits now because you're going to need to collect receipts 5 years down the road when you have 10 people working for you that you give credit cards to, because it's easier for you to let them make the purchases for stuff that they need so that they can be productive, rather than you having to stop everything and, call the supply house or go yourself and collect the purchase. So it's like develop these good habits now and set up your good systems now while you're small. Before you, because you're going to need them. If your goal is to grow the business and get from my level 1 package to the level 4, you're going to want to do that.
Right.
You're going to have to, because you can't give a credit card to an employee and not ask him to provide receipts, because he could
I'm going to flip
off.
this. I'm going to flip this around on you.
Okay.
Are you doing this in your own business?
Me?
Are you setting up the systems so that you can outsource that job, that task, so that you can grow your own business?
In my accounting business?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think I am. I like to think I am. Yeah, I mean, to me, like, you don't need the receipts. Not every single business saves every single little $5 receipt here and there.
Well, it's not about the receipts, so it's about setting up the systems for scaling and growing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, okay, well, you're a small business. Yeah. Right. Are you creating those standard operating procedures so that you can offload a more or a less profitable task to somebody else that is at a lower dollar cost? Are you offloading types of things that you need to do in your business to somebody else because you don't have that time to understand and learn and be an expert in that other thing?
So as far as documenting like processes that are repeatable things that, documenting those repeatable processes so that you can hand it off to somebody else down the road.
Yeah.
I've used Loom. Are you familiar with Loom?
Yes, yes, I am.
I've used Loom and more recently Dropbox Capture to, instead of like physically documenting in an open up Word and writing down what I do and taking screenshots. Periodically, if I'm doing something that I haven't done in a while, that I'm saying, well, it would be good to show somebody how to do this down the road, I'll just start up Loom or Capture. Capture lets me do longer ones, so I've been doing that one recently. But and just recording what I do and just talking while I'm doing it and save it. And my one main client, back in May, we hired, I say we, I mean they hired an administrative assistant. And I've been able to offload some of the monotonous day-to-day things, like basically offloaded the whole AP process to her.
Okay.
And I use Dropbox Capture and Loom often to show her how to do something so that I don't have to go over there and sit down with her. I can just do it if I'm already doing it, record it and say, here's how you do it for the next time. Just send the link.
Right.
So that's one way that I think, preparing for that. I don't know. Does that answer the question that you had at all, or was there something else you were getting at there?
There's no right answer.
I'm
asking the question. You're giving advice.
Hmm.
And I just want, but look, I hire a coach because I can't always see what I don't see.
Yeah.
Right. I can advise somebody else. I can see everything that they're doing or not doing from a marketing standpoint. Mm-hmm. But I get in my own world, I get too myopically focused. And when I get that way, it's hard to produce for myself.
Gotcha. I have to look up what myopically means because I don't know what that means.
You can't see the forest because of the trees.
Okay.
All I see are trees. I can't see the forest.
Gotcha.
You lose sight of the big picture.
Gotcha.
And like, okay. And so, they keep me on the straight and narrow, you know.
Gotcha.
And I think you made a great point about, it's like, well, if I set somebody else up for success, then they're less likely, because of a good decision 5 years ago, to have a problem as they grow and they expand,
Mhm.
and the system's already set up. They're already used to it. It's a habit. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
All right. I have some special questions for you, Sonny.
Okay.
We'll see how this goes. All right. What are the biggest struggles you face today, and how can someone else in your position or, similar position start thinking about those ahead of time?
The biggest struggles I've faced today or
Yeah,
up till today.
today. What
Today, the
what
biggest
are, what
struggle.
are your biggest struggles today, and how can somebody else start thinking about those ahead of time instead of having to go through the struggle?
Mm, today, I mean, it was fun, but I'll call it a struggle. It was maybe getting distracted by you know, worrying a lot about my Facebook page and my website and Instagram and typing up ideas for reels and starting it, and it just you think you're going to take 20 minutes to post something real quick, but then you delete it and change it again because you didn't quite word it right, and something that you set down to do for 20 minutes ends up taking 3 hours, and you're like, oh crap, where'd the time go? But it's the whole time I'm doing that, like, maybe it was a waste of time, but I think I learned a lot of stuff in those 3 hours of messing with it. But um if you could call that a struggle of getting too wrapped up and too excited about like one individual thing that you neglect everything else that you're supposed to be doing that day. um I guess maybe keeping a schedule better, like setting aside specific times throughout the week to well, between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Fridays, that's my social media day, to mess around with my social media. And if I can't get exactly what I want done in that hour, just leave it and just go on to something else. And then wait till the next Friday or whatever other days. Like, I think that's something that I could benefit from, structuring my week better,
Sure.
setting
Okay.
aside times for specific tasks.
That absolutely makes sense.
Um, I
All
do have
right.
something else to say about that if you don't mind.
Okay, go
Um,
ahead.
So I recently read a book, Originals. I think that's what Originals by Adam Grant. And one of the uh, funny things in there was he mentioned that procrastination can actually be a good thing. Um, it can actually lead to more creativity. But he said instead of putting it off till the end, he said start it, spend a little bit of time on it, and then put it off. And those ideas that you were thinking about when you started it, they're kind of working subconsciously
Hmm.
while you're doing these other divergent activities. And by doing these divergent activities, I guess you pick up on other stuff that's happening that helps you solve that original problem. And then when you get back to it, you actually come up with more creative and better ideas than if you were to sit down right away and bang through it, and get it done right away. So he says, start it and then just leave it for later. And then when you get back to it later, it's going to be better than if you had just started it and banged it all out right away. So I don't know if that's true. Apparently they did a study on it, but so it's science.
I can tell you it is true.
Yeah.
It in the last 20 years, the world of neuroscience has grown leaps and bounds, and what we
Mm-hmm.
know about the brain compared to what we used to know or think about the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the subconscious is where it doesn't know right or wrong or true or false. It just knows, right? You give it information, and that's what it goes with. And so when your conscious brain is thinking, your subconscious brain is not thinking.
Mhm.
So what you're describing is a process where you give your subconscious input and then you go do something else. Well, your conscious brain is not thinking about that thing anymore, but your subconscious is actually working on it.
Uh-huh.
Right. And so especially if you go to sleep and you're thinking about that project or what you started, now your subconscious is going to be thinking about that all night long.
Yeah.
And so you wake up, you go shower, it's like, oh man, that thing, I just had this great idea. And it's because your subconscious has been allowed the freedom to go out and
Yeah.
actually work.
That actually just, I don't know if the word's epiphany, but gave me a little light bulb. But that would get into talking about God and religion, and maybe we don't want to go there with that. But
That would
there's
definitely be a
something.
topic for another time.
There's definitely something in there that lit a light bulb off in my head. But we can
Yeah,
leave that for
I
later.
find brain study to be fascinating. In the
Mhm.
conscious and subconscious. I think that the neuroscience of marketing is just fascinating for me.
Mhm.
So it's a big part of what I do because hey, look, copywriting is psychological warfare. And if I'm going to try to influence somebody to take an action, then I have to be able to think about why they would take that action, what motivates them, what fears do they have, how are they going to make that decision, what worries do they have. And if I'm armed with that kind of information, that type of intelligence, then I can go and create a message that resonates. They feel it emotionally, not just logically, because people don't make decisions um, logically. They make them
Mhm.
emotionally, and they justify them logically.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So, last question: what's something you didn't pay enough attention to or ignored early, and then had to learn the hard way?
Didn't pay enough attention to or learned early. Say it again. Something I didn't pay enough attention to or
Or you ignored it early, and then you
ignored.
had to learn it the hard way? A life lesson, perhaps.
Um, my kids and my wife. Something not paying attention to. I don't know.
I mean, that's an
That's the
answer.
first thing that came to my mind is,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
ignored them, and you had to learn the hard way not to do that.
yeah, exactly. So I
Okay.
think, again, getting too hyper focused on certain aspects of my business and, really wanting to figure it out right away. And again, consciously thinking on it too much, like we were
Yeah.
saying, and not being present, when I get home.
Because Sonny Peak has already admitted that he's working 168 hours a
Yeah,
week.
yep. So, there's been, like, my wife told me yesterday when we were going to bed. I think she put her AirPod in, like, when we sat down at bed, and I was like, "What are you putting that in for?" I thought we were going to sit down and watch TV together. And she said, "You do that all the time." And I'm like, "No, I don't." And she said, "Yeah, you did. You did it yesterday. You came in the door with the AirPod in your ear, and you ignored everybody for an hour before you even said hi." And I thought about it, and I'm like, maybe I did, because I'm so obsessed with this, taking in all this information, that I'll listen to podcasts on the way home with my AirPod,
Sure.
and I'll walk in the door with this stupid thing in, and that's something. I mean, I don't think, maybe I'm learning it the easy way because there hasn't been any huge consequences of it, but
I say, if you got
definitely
divorced, that
something.
would be a hard lesson.
Yeah, definitely something I need to work on is, you know, maybe I need to let my subconscious do some work, here and there. I
Yeah.
think.
Certainly could, if you learned how to do it and understood it, it's not going to hurt.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So tell us, Sonny, how can people reach you? What's your website? And who do you serve best?
They can go to my website, sonnypeakcpa.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So they can get me there. They can email me at sonny@sonnypeakcpa.com. And that's how they can get in touch with me if
All
they
right.
want.
And who do you serve best?
I serve commercial contractors, specialty trade contractors,
Okay.
and more.
Are you limited geographically?
I'm in Maryland, but I can work with anybody, all 50 states.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
so
Very good. Hey, I appreciate your participation in this project. I love having you as a guest, getting the insight of a CPA firm.
cool. Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate it.